some of your predecessors have had as head of the CIA. What moved you to take on the job?
Well, I said this at the Senate hearings, and perhaps the times are a little cynical that people may not understand this. I felt a sense of duty, sense of obligation. I was asked to do it without great background of chance to debate it. I was in China at the time, and I feel that if you're called on to serve, you ought to serve, and it's a tough job. I've been very pleased at the quality of the people I've found out there already at the Langley headquarters of the CIA, and indeed in the whole intelligence community. And I recognize it's controversial, but I think it's fundamentally important. I think I can do it with integrity, and had inculcated into me early, as many people have, a sense of service, and it's no more complicated than that.
Well, do you think you'll be successful in rehabilitating the CIA in the eyes of Congress, the American people?
I hope so, sir. I'm going to try, and I'm going to have excellent help there. Well, I'm be there as long as they want me. I'm serving at the pleasure of the president, this president, future president, and I'm approaching this as a real commitment with no time frame. When I discussed this job with the president, there has been no thing, I'll stay for a certain period of time.
Do you feel that there have been any serious lapses of direction in the previous management of the CIA?
Yes, sir. I think there are some things that are desperately needed to be changed. As soon as the Rockefeller Commission report came out, the former director very promptly put out regulations addressing himself to specifics, many of the things he'd done before that. And yes, there were clearly abuses. There were awful abuses. But the problem is, though, that we've heard, because of the nature of the abuses, we've heard of the abuses, we've heard of some abuses that didn't prove to be abuses, and we have not, because of the nature of the business, heard of the successes. So we do have a major problem, and yet I have the comforting feeling that the American people support the concept of a strong CIA and a strong intelligence community.
Did the responsibility for the abuses reside primarily in the White House or in the direction of the CIA itself?
I think there's plenty of blame to go around in lots of different areas, Mr. Noyes.
Mr. Pincus?
Mr. Bush, I'd like to come at the question of leaks from a different point of view. Last fall, there were disclosures made to congressional committees about a covert operation by the United States in Angola. And your predecessor, Mr. Colby, and the administration has been very critical that that information was leaked out gradually to the press. A good deal of that leaking came about because at the very same time that Congress was told we were acting in Angola covertly, administration officials were saying publicly that no such activity was taking place. Now, as you look to the problem of leaking, do you see a necessity of the administration to tell the truth in those areas as a way of preventing leaks, which come about because there have been misleading statements made to the public?
I think there is a necessity of telling the truth. It's very difficult in something involving covert operations. If they were fully disclosed, they would no longer be covert. So it's very difficult, I think, to have full disclosure. But certainly the concept of lying to the American people is not a valid one. And so I would hope that this problem will be ameliorated now by the more formalized procedure of the new oversight group, the Special Operations Committee, the formal 40 Committee. I think close cooperation and contact with Congress, which is one of the things that's going to come out of this, and I'm fully supportive of that, out of all these investigations, will result in an elimination or a minimization of the chance for that kind of thing. But I really believe that we ought to avoid the posture of lying publicly. But there will be many times when we cannot be responsive to questions because of the nature of the work that we're involved in.
But you recognize there's a difference between being responsive and misleading.
Yes, sir, I do recognize that, and I hope I can conduct myself in this job with that in mind.
Now, following on in Angola, there was additional criticism that the release of the information about Angola led to Congress cutting off aid to Angola, and that therefore this was damaging to our national security. The administration now seems to be moving to a position of recognizing the very faction in Angola that we were at one time trying to undermine covertly. Do you think as a result of those leaks and the congressional action that our national security has been undermined because of Angola?
I don't know enough about all the details of Angola to say that, but I would come down strongly against the leaks. I think the machinery, let's look to the future instead of the past. I think the machinery is there to safeguard the interests of the American people through information to Congress, and I do feel that leaking covert operations is very damaging to the United States. But whether you could prove in a court of law that any specific case damaged the national security, I don't know. It's clear to me in looking at Angola that Cuba and the Soviet Union at this point have come out ahead. That's clear. Now, what evolves in Angola from now, or whether we can move in there diplomatically or something and improve the situation, that's for the future to determine.
Mr. Bush, in Angola, the administration was engaged in a secret operation which it turned out the Congress opposed, and judging by polls, the people of the country were strongly opposed to. Wouldn't the U.S. have suffered less psychological damage there if the administration had been required to go to Congress and seek approval for that covert operation and been told by Congress, no, don't do it?
Well, I'm not sure that it would have happened if exactly that way. You see, the problem in Angola, Mr. Monroe, is not so much the Angola itself, but it's the perception of national will in other areas, important areas, and with other countries, allies, friends, and foe alike. And so Angola, you can't separate it from the broad perception of our will. But in your specific question, I don't know that that would have made a difference or not. I think under the new machinery that we can avoid, even though we're not giving prior notice of covert operations, I think that through goodwill and communication with the oversight committees, protecting secrecy so it won't leak out if an operation starts, we can safeguard the interests of the American people, and I think a lousy operation could be aborted by congressional action, either through resource control or through their taking it up with the president, which Congress has a wonderful way of doing, and they have a right to do that.